How did Russia and China plan to destroy America and NATO, and how close they were? Nar Gil Kran told us in a June 2020 broadcast that he feared the actions of Vladimir Putin. The monitoring systems of the space station Syria 4, belonging to the Postros Treaty, which monitor all the major capitals and alliances of the Earth, have since gathered worrying data. Nar Gil Kran was worried about the political maneuvers that were being made at a high level. He said that Vladimir Putin won the heart of Donald Trump, and it influences him in a very dangerous way. Also, Xi Jinping is manipulating Vladimir Putin. In 2020, Xi Jinping repeatedly assured Vladimir Putin of China's support if Russia chose to resolve the Ukrainian issue for good. But Putin has claimed that he will solve the Ukrainian problem as soon as the US elections pass. From the discussions recorded by the tracking equipment, it emerged that Russia would become heavily involved in the US elections to help Donald Trump win. This was not exactly to China's liking, but the Chinese government also considered a Trump government to be preferable to a Biden government. Xi Jinping, despite the fact that he had great grievances about Donald Trump's rhetoric on China, he believed that a new presidential term for Mr. Trump would further weaken both the United States and their alliance with NATO members. So Vladimir Putin wanted to use Trump as a lever inside NATO and within the world's greatest democracies, a lever with which to greatly weaken the cohesion of the alliance but also of the United States. What Vladimir Putin didn't understand at the time was that even China in turn wanted to use Russia in a pretty bad way on the international stage. China encouraged Russia to provoke the West, attacking Ukraine in order to analyze, without any military involvement and at thousands of costs, the cohesion of the alliance, its unity and its level of involvement in matters that did not directly concern the alliance. Then, depending on that, she would also act on the Taiwanese issue. China was betting on Russia's involvement in the US, and if Donald Trump was elected, it even had a plan to unveil Russia's implications in the election that would trigger Trump's dismissal or at least his investigation. China was even counting on supporting Trump's opposition after the election, and some Chinese strategists were going as far as the possibility of civil war between forces supporting Trump and Biden. All these tensions in the US would have been actively supported by China and Russia. Each would support one of the parties, so that US democracy and strength would have eroded to the point where the American state would have deprived itself of its status as a great power. During this time, China would have been in charge of the South China Sea and Taiwan. North Korea would have invaded South Korea, Iran dominate the Middle East, and Russia to become again what it once was in Europe. With the recovery of at least the territories of the former USSR, and domination of Central Europe, Finland, and even Germany. Thus, even a return of the US to the status of a great power after the sunset of the Trump era, would have found the US in a strategic situation that left it no alternative but isolationism, which would have been similar to an economic suicide. Nar Gil Kran was effectively stunned by the naivety of President Trump, who literally didn't see how Putin was manipulating him. Vladimir Putin had made Trump dream of becoming a semi-dictatorial US ruler. Trump envied Putin and Erdogan for their political power and the way they made their mark on the domestic and foreign policy of their states. Horrified by the possibility that the earth could find itself in a new world war, which this time would surely have slipped into a nuclear one, the experts of the post-Rose Treaty in Earth's geopolitics began to analyze very carefully the military potential of the states. Nar Gil Kran said that expert analysis showed that Russia's military power was so eroded that a victory against a Ukraine abandoned by NATO would not have been possible earlier than a year, with catastrophic losses for Russia. And if NATO helped Ukraine with armaments and equipment, the front could even be turned around and Donbas and Crimea recovered by the Ukrainians. But Nar Gil Kran was truly astounded by the fact that Russia, and especially Putin, did not seem to be aware of the military capabilities of Russia, nor those of Ukraine, which had already benefited from NATO aid in training troops and command cadres. More astounding was that not even NATO or China were aware of the deplorable state of the Russian arsenal and forces. Moreover, Germany believed in a rapid victory for Russia in the event of an attack, and the German government at the time of Mrs. Merkel was even appalled by the possibility that Russia, after the occupation of Ukraine and naturally Belarus, would reach through Poland again to Germany's borders. Although it seems incredible, Germany needed a strong Poland between itself and Russia, or this could only be done with American support. But Donald Trump seemed less and less willing to unfold against Russia, as he saw China as the most dangerous enemy. That's why Germany wanted more than ever for Trump's presidency to end in the US. Within NATO, the only state that seemed to roughly rightly appreciate Russia's military strength was Turkey. And Nar Gil Kran said in the summer of 2020 that in the autumn, Turkey would challenge Russia's military force through intermediaries. Nar Gil Kran told us that Turkey has its own agenda, different from both NATO and Russia, USA or China. Turkey was going to test the power of the Russian army in Syria, Libya, even in Ukraine, on the front line with Russia in Crimea and Donbas. But the most important maneuver by which the Turks aimed to test the limits of Russia would be done in Azerbaijan and Armenia. In summer of 2020, the intense arming of Azerbaijan, which was to be thrown against Armenia, had already begun. Azerbaijan had been lured to start the war with two promises: to reclaim the territories lost to Armenia, and to directly involve Turkey if Russia, Armenia's ally, retaliated. Later history has shown us that Professor Nar Gil Kran was right, and when Azerbaijan attacked Armenia, Russia and Turkey actually clashed behind them. The Turks then tested a lot of weapons and how they acted on Russian equipment. At the same time, the Turks were able to observe the real capabilities of the Russian equipment and the power of the Russian army, which was not able to intervene decisively in the war.
Наш долг